So we'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the South East Nation, the Malakadee people of the Yuin River and the Liliquani people of the Far South. We recognise their continuing connection to land, water and culture and pay our respects to their elders past and present. In attendance tonight we have Deputy Mayor Thorpe, Councillor Armstrong, Councillor Jessup, Councillor Robertson, Councillor O'Neill and Councillor Mozak. Would you like to introduce your staff, please?
Sure. Tonight we have General Counsel Matt Grimsey, Director of Community and Place Lyle Ground, Acting Director of People and Corporate Services Raylene Watson, Director of Infrastructure and Assets Frank Chen, Connor Watson, the Innovation and Technology Project Officer, Sue Brezinak, Acting Assistant Manager Administration Services, and Sandy Rustell, Major Projects Officer.
Thank you. We have no apologies tonight. We have Councillor Paul Gibson is on leave of absence tonight and there's no one absent. Councillors, do anyone wish to declare an interest in any of tonight's agenda items, please? Councillor Robertson?
Yes, item 19.13.3.
Thank you very much. And Councillor Thorpe?
I have two agenda item 19.013/26 and 19.014/26.
Thank you very much. You'll fill out your forms and give them to Sue or Sandy, please. 4.003/26. Do I have a councillor to move a motion that the minutes of the ordinary meeting 25th Feb 2026 as circulated be confirmed? Councillor Mozak and Councillor O'Neill. Do any councillors wish to report any changes?
Thanks, Mayor.
Well, I'll put that forward. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That's all councillors present. The motion is carried. No legislative items tonight. No urgent matters. I just have one for Mayor's announcements, and that is that Councillor Burgess has resigned as councillor. The Electoral Commissioner has advised that no recount will take place as the resignation is within 6 months of publication of the Notice of Elections under Section 307 of the Local Government Act 1993. Public participation. There was no questions taken on notice from previous meeting. There was no questions given on notice. Questions without notice. There were no questions prior to the meeting tonight. So, does anyone like to? Yes, you can come forward then, please, to the lectern.
Thank you, Mayor.
No problems.
Yes, I have a question regarding the AGM motion report at the February meeting. The report on the motion that I put to Council's AGM last December was included in the agenda for the Council meeting in February, and I apologise that I was on the mainland and couldn't even access the internet that week. Since my return, I have read the minutes and watched the live stream. So thank you for the availability of those. In this agenda, under number 18, Community and Place Reports, there's 18.1, Annual General Meeting Resolution Transport Needs. And the heading for the agenda then included the statement, Reporting Brief, Director Community and Place, presenting a report on a resolution from the 24-25 Annual General Meeting regarding transport infrastructure, not transport needs. Also, in the motion that was supported unanimously by councillors, the first section is A, the report on the 24-25 AGM resolution regarding transport infrastructure be received and noted. This is not consistent with the heading Transport Needs. The motion that this report addressed did not refer to transport infrastructure, and this is confirmed by the final statement in the report, that's part 31, which states that a separate transport analytics study, which is what was requested, would duplicate work is unlikely to add value and is therefore not supported. In the introduction to the motion at the December AGM, I said, local transport is a critically important issue for the Huon Valley, and although it is not formally a local government responsibility, it is a service that the council could assist in developing as part of its primary purpose under the Local Government Act to provide for the health, safety and welfare of the community. With the current situation, it is residents in the more remote part of the valley who are totally dependent on private cars who are the most affected by the cost and potential shortages of petrol and diesel fuel. And the council still has the primary purpose under the Local Government Act to provide for the health, safety and welfare of the community. The council has a livability framework and goals and strategies associated with building community resilience. And my question is, what contingency plans does the council have in place to support members of the community who are isolated if there is no petrol or diesel available locally, or the cost is beyond their capacity to meet?
Thank you for that. I'm sorry that you still have issues with the wording from the AGM.
Thank you.
We'll get that corrected for you, but I'll have to pass the other on about, yeah.
You guys want to attempt to answer that? But look, the straight answer is we don't have contingency plans for saving isolated people in the event of a fuel emergency. I would hazard that not many councils, if any, would have similar, and to do such a thing would be a collective responsibility of all levels of government, if we're being realistic. So we do have a business continuity plan for the fuel situation that we all find ourselves in. We will be managing the fuel situation as best as we can, and we'll obviously prioritise support for people and need to change and reprioritise our services if we find ourselves in that event. But it is not something that we're adequately prepared for. Is the straight answer.
There are contingency plans in place for fires, floods and so on, emergencies. Can any of those be brought into play to help people who are so badly affected by the potential fuel?
There's no existing plans that look at mass transportation of people on an ongoing basis to their place of work, etc. So this is
I was thinking more of social isolation and lack of capacity to get food and so on than getting to work.
Sure, and that's the kind of work that our resilience team have been working on broadly for some time now, in defence of any emergency. So just building that capacity inherent to the population, regardless. Because the straight answer is we can't plan for every eventuality. What we can do is build that general resilience to make people stronger for whatever is coming in this uncertain world. So we'll be continuing to do that through that. That aspect of our primary responsibility to support people in the way they need it in the moment. We're absolutely committed to that. But an enduring fuel crisis is going to pose significant challenges for this locality.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So as there's no other in the gallery, thank you for that question. You don't have any other questions you wanted to ask?
Oh, well, I found a couple I could ask.
Got 15 minutes.
If you'd like
If
to.
there's more, go for it.
Yeah, go for it. If you'd like to. You don't have to. Yeah.
If I could find them. They were just about infrastructure. I was looking at the heating for the Port Huon Sports Centre for the pool, and solar and thermal upgrade project. That was on page 40 of 91. And I wondered whether it says the Port Huon Sports Centre project plan includes the removal of existing solar water blankets and replacing them with solar panels to heat the pool. And I was wondering if that was evacuated tube technology or if it's solar electric technology.
If I can pass that through.
Through Mayor. So the solar blanket currently on the roof, they're aging and they're not efficient as they are designed or they're supposed to be. One is this is a technology, probably a conventional technology that get used. Two, this is aging infrastructure on the roof. This is probably due for replacement regardless. And with this grant, we take the grant opportunity to replace with solar panel because we do have
Solar electric panels.
solar electric
Yeah,
panels, so
okay.
it's not a solar tube. Because we're using the effectively a heat pump, reverse cycle heat pump to heat the pool.
Yep.
Because the tube, they're not enough by themselves to heat the pool to 26 degrees.
Right, thank you. And the other one was about the Signet Town Hall. I was just wondering about the community engagement to drive usage in the new front rooms, which are completed or will be completed soon. I don't know.
I can pass that through.
Yes, that consultation has been completed. We had limited response in that space, so we try to make it more general arrangement, not to that way try to catch a wider audience and user in that.
Right, so you're looking to a wider audience to use the ground floor rooms.
So we like
Apart from-
everyone who want to use it to use it. So we are not designed for specific purpose or use.
Yeah,
Yep.
Okay.
And we'll see how it is used before making any further investment decisions on particular equipment or storage or whatever else. We're also close to finalising the front rooms where we'll so that we'll actually be able to have some council officers present there on a routine basis. So and a meeting room so that public can meet with council officers and with all the work that we've got going on in Signet planning and then upcoming infrastructure. It's good to have a base over there. So
Very good.
that'll be happening in the next couple of weeks. I think we'll start having a presence there.
we look forward to that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. No deputations, no petitions. There's no planning reports tonight. Are there any councillors tabling their activities tonight? Yes, thank you. Do you wish to speak to anything that's on there?
Let me just have a look. Thank you. I think one of the highlights would have been the Circular Economy Human Transport Forum a couple of weeks ago, which was well attended by a number of council staff. I believe you yourself been there as well, as was CEO Krantz. Yeah, really great initiative driven by the Circular Economy Human, presenting alternatives around the world, how regional communities deal with their transport needs and finding solutions for them, which was quite inspiring, and I guess many lessons could be learned of that. I also attended the Tess Water Connect lunch, which was a quite well attended event. Frank Chen attended as well, which was just for me, I still feel relatively new within this whole realm of council and everything that's connected to it. It was just a great opportunity to reach out to other local or to other elected members and also get to know people in Tess Water. Was a busy enough month, I suppose. Thank you.
No problems. Well done. Thank you. So 11.003/26. Do I have a councillor to move a motion that the general reports minutes for the period 1 to 28 Feb 2026 be received and noted? Councillor Armstrong and Councillor O'Neill. Councillor Armstrong, do you wish to talk to anything there? Do I have any other councillors that would like to make a comment on anything there? Yes, Councillor?
I heard that sigh, Councillor Jessup.
No, I sighed before you opened your mouth. I was just trying to think of what I was wanting to say.
Right. Look, I wanted to speak about, on page 20 of the reports, some comments about community-led environmental action and the talk of a working group or network there. There's some mention elsewhere in the report about a service providers network meeting that was held, which sounds really awesome. and links closely with how we've defined council's role. Also, a networking community and place event that's scheduled for March. I'm not sure whether that's happened yet or still to come. That's really exciting. I've heard that kind of concept spoken about in the community for quite some time. So in the environmental space, I guess I've seen in the past couple of years some challenges at bringing participants together there, and that often one set of stakeholders missed the land users or land stewards, so natural resource land-based activities, might be farmers, even into the marine space. But people who have an asset and a responsibility, and often accreditation or certification there, but might get missed from the engagement in those kinds of potential networks. So I guess I'm flagging a concern there. And also expertise, like the grassroots is really important to capture, but it's really important to capture the expertise as well. And I've previously spoken about engaging NRM South for their leadership and expertise and resources that we want to make sure we link with. So I guess a comment on that and where that might be going or headed. It seemed to reflect on that past grassroots approach, and that we haven't seen that pay off for council in terms of any specific direction. We've got a livability framework fund later in the agenda, and I've spoken before. We want to be overwhelmed with awesome project proposals, but that's a leap from where we've been. How do we get closer to that?
So your question is that, like, how do we engage more with?
And broadly. So the grassroots, but also those land users and their networks, it might be representative bodies or whatever, but also experts and expertise.
I suppose, might just throwing that at me now, like just listening to that, would be as a role as a councillor to promote the fact that did you know there was someone meeting or whatever? Like how, yeah, I'm not sure if Lyle, whether that community, whether it can be done a different way or.
So, through you, Mayor. So, I'm not sure specifically what in the reports sort of we're referring to, but I know previously I've spoken about that environmental network, and subsequent to the last update I gave it, I think the last or the two council meetings ago, we actually had a meeting with our Connected Communities department. So you referenced the livability framework, and part of that, a key sort of mechanism in that is asset-based community development, and that's recognising that the strength in this valley is the communities that live in it, and council can't deliver everything and you know what I mean. The most important thing we can do is make our communities resilient and support them where they need it most. Our approach to that point where I gave the update a couple months back had been it's self-reflection. We had thought that was the best way to do it. And our Connected Communities department or unit reminded us that it's not us to think what the solution could be, it's for the community to tell us what that solution might look like. So we've actually changed the whole scope of that. And that is, to your point, broadening it out and saying, and actually engaging wider into the community to understand how they see a network, whatever it might be, and I'm not going to assume what it will be. So we've taken a massive step back, and we're going to engage to see what do these groups, what do these grassroots people, what are these experts? Because we've done it before. We had regen agriculture. We used to have workshops around that. But again, we want to understand what, in this day and age, what does the community want? What type of support, what type of facilitation do they need? And then we will then form what we can do as a council, sphere of control, to then respond to that. So what I'll take as an action, if that's okay, I can give you an update on where we are now. I'll put it forward. Maybe you can go into the minutes of the next meeting, or to the minutes of this meeting, on where we are and what we're thinking and how we're broadening that, because it matches actually what you've said in terms of there's more to it than what we initially pitched in that space.
Thank you. Yeah. I guess if I saw something like a natural resource stakeholders or a network event similar to the service providers and the community-based associations and so forth, that might be useful. Second question, there's a mention on page 24 about reserves. 64% of the property is covered by threatened black gum woodland and white gum wet forest. And I'm a little surprised at that because I can see that hillside from general life. And there's mention that this is identified from a VCA or vegetation condition assessment, which is usually a later step in the process. I'm concerned about the potential financial implications of the process happening on that piece of land. And I wonder if I could ask for it to be brought up within the audit panel, if that was the appropriate channel. There are potential costs in the short term of managing that kind of natural resource through a change or transition in land use. There are also potential long-term costs, and I think there's potential opportunities. I'm not sure that we're taking advantage of those opportunities by getting straight in there and doing the work and taking that risk on ourselves. And if I speak about carbon or natural asset values, if we take a paddock and put trees on that, there are parts of our economy and community that place value on that, which is fantastic. But if we just do that work ourselves and fund that work ourselves, including the risk of weed management, or it's a very steep hill, potential landslips and things like that, or fire risk next to the town, when we're potentially missing the opportunity to gain credit for it, and that's our community's potential resource and potential credit. Does that make sense how I explain that?
So just to go back in time, so there's a decision of council that council through their NRM unit would take on management of a number of reserves, 4-foot reserve, 4-foot road reserve being one of them. And I use the term reserve loosely, it's not a formal reserve. What we're reporting here is that there's a VCA. VCAs were done just to assess community type and condition in those reserves, and this one's reporting on 4-foot. In terms of management actions, those actions are, so previously it's been raised that there's opportunity in that space, and certainly I think we've explored a number of different opportunities, carbon being one of them, carbon credits or through revegetation. We've also looked at offsets, another one. But at this stage, there's no clear, and I can provide detailed update if necessary, there's no clear and obvious near-term benefit that we can access that I would promote staying existing management actions to access. So in other words, right now management is focused on the existing naturally vegetated areas, not the slope, not the paddock slope that goes up the hill. We're controlling weeds, we're doing a little bit of re-veg in that space and whatever else is in the management plan. We're not undertaking wholesale revegetation of that hill slope. And I would say that opportunity still presents in that space. And as I said, we're not just business as usual. We're looking at opportunities in the space. The offsets one is actually more potentially has a more near-term benefit that we can access rather than the carbon credits, which at this stage doesn't seem to have a pathway in the Tassie context. So that's what I can say. But if more information is needed, I can provide them.
Thank you. Yes, Councillor Chisholm.
That wasn't a groan. So I was just going back to look for something I was looking for, and that was going back to the medical stuff. Just, I suppose, congratulations for getting more GPs. I think that's a really good outcome, and establishing or re-establishing the women's health specialisation down there. I think is great. And I was just linking it back to what I was looking for was the answer to the question about that I asked last council meeting. So it looks like we're probably going to exceed the number of medical appointments this year than our highest previous year a couple of years ago, which is great. And I do note that the cost to ratepayers per appointment has dropped from $19 per appointment down to $10, which is a really good way of looking at it, actually. So that's still a $230,000 deficit this year. Have we sort of worked through what the whole of year impact of the Medicare rebate, now that we're a full Medicare billing practice, we do get a bit more from the Commonwealth government. Is that so? Are we still projecting a sort of a downward trend on that cost per appointment?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the whole strategy and what I guess we're trying to articulate with that cost per appointment as a metric is you've got to actually build if you think about it in just raw economic terms, it's the doctors that make money for the practice, and then everything else there is an expense. So the administrative support, the nurses, all these things that can't actually derive billing income. So when you've got one doctor, you still need most of those same support services to support them. So we're in a position of having to make these services sustainably viable. We've made some pretty significant decisions and got it to a point where we could actually rebuild it safely and sustainably. So it's a big structural change. Yes, Medicare does improve our each billable moment. So the revenue is a slight improvement, but the main issue that we're dealing with is the expense of running the service. And the way we can attack that is through growing the service.
Yeah, okay. So you've got the expense down significantly.
Yeah.
So now it's a scale question is really what you're saying.
Correct.
So we probably need another, 2 GPs working 2 or 3 days a week or something to...
Yeah, so we're working very hard it's great that we've got doctors that are sticking around longer. The vibe in the team is really good.
No, not much locum stuff now. I think that's
locums have come down substantially, but we're actually taking on a locum shortly as a fellow, as a trial to hopefully come down and be part of us long term. So, and that's really as part of growing it. The supervision relationship is the other really key one. It's great that we are more attractive to young registrars wanting to come down and practice and to then stay longer because the practice is working for them and it's a great area. But we can only take so many of them on without supervision. So, or without more supervision. So yeah, it's this careful growing of the service. I'd also note that every time we take on new registrars, so their ability to drive revenue, so they're providing great care, whatever, and they're learner doctors, but they are less effective at billing. They are less productive than a fellow, as you would expect. A younger person in their career, they're just starting out. It takes them time to get up to billings where they're actually breaking even or actually making money for the service. Again, it's bringing them on and training them up quickly so that they can actually be a return on the investment that we're making in them.
Yeah, balancing with quality care, of course, not forcing too many patients.
As I said, when I'm just talking on the economic side of it, the care is a whole separate thing, and that obviously comes first. But the question you're asking is about the dollars.
And I think I note that the quantum anyway is significantly different because 4 years ago it was 500 a year or something. I know they put an average figure in there, but it was,
It's just shy of
close. Yeah. So it's sort of almost halved since then.
Yep.
Yeah.
And we were in a situation where the more appointments we did, the greater the cost to the bottom line.
Right.
So we were, it was just, and we've turned that trend around where we'll have significantly more appointments this year, so significantly more care at a lower cost per unit of care, and with on this continuing trajectory to actually reduce that deficit position.
Cool. Thank you. Well done.
Yes.
Sorry, through you, Mayor. Just had a question in relation to what Councillor Jessup was just asking about. Are we totally 100% bulk billed for every service? So like if there's a minor surgical surgery or procedure or...
I'll say we're 100% bulk billing practice for everything that we can bulk bill for.
Okay.
So, yeah.
I just wondered because some people are bulk billing but they're still charging a small out-of-pocket fee for like a pathology service or, a minor skin cancer off or something.
I don't know the detail of that.
It just made me think about it when we were just talking.
We since going 100% bulk billing, we have been achieving the practice 100% bulk billing targets.
Yeah. Yes, I know we received it. It's all good on that front, but it just made me wonder.
But things like pathology would be generally
Two separate items,
anyway.
It was just a question that popped into my head, that was all, but I haven't heard anyone complaining or I just wondered because I know different practices do it different ways. Thank you.
Any other? Okay, so I'll go back to you, Councillor Armstrong. Do you wish to close or anything? No?
No, thank you, Mayor.
Okay, well, I'll put that motion forward. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That's all councillors present and the motion is carried. Um, 12 workshops, they're listed there that we had in March. 13.1, answers to questions taken on notice. There were 3 councillor questions taken on notice in the previous meeting. Councillor Robinson's regarding environmental sustainability report, environment and sustainability report. Councillor Jessup's regarding medical centres, and Councillor Gibson's regarding council's rental agreement with the Signet bin shed. The responses are in the minutes. There was no questions, council questions given on notice. Councillors, are there any questions tonight? I'll start that off if I may. And fuel is on everyone's front of mind, as we all know, and for very good reason. I've been thinking about the impact it's going to have on our projects as council. So, and I know that it was sort of a little bit was answered in the public question time, but is there something that we've got that we're going to have to run with or do or services or? Yeah,
sure. And look, there's changes that we're already making. Obviously, communicating with our staff because there is just a level of uncertainty. Effectively, what our job is now is to control the costs while maintaining core services. How you do that in simple terms is to prioritise the core. So retract, save fuel wherever you can, but it doesn't just mean cutting out business, travel and use of machinery. We have core services like rubbish collection, for example, that there is no alternative to running diesel trucks around to pick this stuff up. So the sacrifices we made on the delivery, that we may need to make on the delivery of services may not come directly from things that save fuel directly. It needs to come out of other parts of council. So we have a ELT this week endorsed a draft business continuity plan, which looks at everything up to from just escalating costs and what we do to manage short-term cost escalations, all the way through to fuel rationing, so we can scale according to that. And that does just mean stripping out more and more services to retract back to what is strictly just the core of what council does. And that is, when you're at that point, it's very strict statutory requirements. It's the collection of and haulage of bog waste, things for public safety and health. So that's what that kind of retraction would look like. At the moment, it was $3.20 odd in Huonville today for diesel. We're primarily a diesel fleet, but we're also 75% of our usage is our heavy vehicle fleet, and the current costs at the moment. Well, last week when we worked it out, it's about $10,000 a month more than what we typically spend is the impact that it's had on us. So we have the latest direction I've sent out. It was this afternoon. We are encouraging staff to work from home. We're encouraging staff to take leave over the Easter break. That's as much to control council's costs in the short term as to provide people with some R&R while it's a quieter time of year anyway. It's just a sensible thing to do, and with an eye on all of our staff having to travel to work, and we're just trying to buffer that personal cost as much as council's own cost. And we are a flexible workplace, so we can do that. We've also got vehicle use restrictions on, which effectively look like what we did in COVID, where we just really prioritise, as great as face-to-face is, we use digital technology wherever we possibly can, and our outdoor crews have already commenced a range of fuel-saving measures based just on prioritisation. They haven't had to go too far yet, but we're obviously keeping a really strict eye on it so that we don't blow this year's budget. And certainly the strategy is to go early with incremental management processes, so there's not big bang drastic issues. As far as the community, yes, if there's deep, if this becomes a long-standing deep crisis, there's no indication yet that the federal government thinks that we will have fuel rationing, etc. But we have a plan for our own business operations, but we do not have a plan at the moment for what that would mean to support our community. We would need to be working in partnership with state and federal government is the reality of the scale of that kind of crisis. So we will just hope like hell that it doesn't come to that. And if we have to take further reductive measures than what we've already taken, just to minimise fuel use and be as efficient as we possibly can. And I mean, we try to be obviously an efficient organisation anyway, but if we have to take further measures, we'll need to communicate with the community what that will look like, because that's when people will start to appreciate service reductions and changes to the way, in particular, how we do things in the outdoor workforce.
I should imagine when we talk about the scale of part of our core is the rubbish.
Yep.
But we also have contracted people that pick up our rubbish. They're going to have incurred costs as well.
Yeah.
So they're going to be coming back as well, like to Legat or to wherever they're got their contract through.
Yep.
So there's implications of it, not just
our
bills.
Our planning takes into account all those contractual arrangements that we've got as well, and there's a huge amount of complexity in this, and it's also not just the short term. It's one of the things that we'll increasingly focus on once we get immediate management arrangements sorted out is the longer term, the flow through of these kind of price increases in the economy, and when we start preparing for next year's capital works program. At this stage, it would be a reasonable assumption that tenderers will have a very low degree of confidence of their ability to tender accurately, which might mean that we need to consider, and part of our continuity plan is what would emergency procurement arrangements look like, where we go much more open book. We have rise and fall mechanisms that protect both the contractor. The last thing we want to do is financially penalise local contractors. We want them to be able to come out of something like this as a resilient business, but we also need to make sure that we're getting good value for council. So again, that might be a really strict prioritisation, and some of the things that we need to renew, would love to renew, then there is likely to be difficult decisions in that capital works program to pull back and delay some projects, whilst also feeding some into the market so that local contractors can continue to have some works. And there's certainly things that we really can't just say stop to, but anything that's discretionary, we'll probably need to be looking at.
And we will possibly have people that won't, have a stockpile there, won't come into the transfer station, or they won't do something, and so there'll be a less income, like it could be sports centres, it could be things that if you're saving your fuel, you'll take things off your list that you were going to do that week.
Yeah.
So it has that flow. So let's hope that it doesn't last that long, but we all have to be realistic to know that we need to be looking at these things. So thank you for that. Do we have any other questions without notice?
I put one on about solar, but it's actually on the agenda paper now. I don't know if you wanted to answer that now, or was that to be answered later?
We'll show in.
That's the end council questions, isn't it? Everyone notice?
No, it's been on notice on Monday.
Oh, yeah. Oh, sorry, I thought that was in here. Okay.
There's no response there, that's all. So you're going to add that in later?
Yeah, we'll add that in later, but we can talk to it now if you'd like.
I'm always happy to hear your voice.
Well, I was going to flick it over to Frank, if that's okay.
So probably I'll just read the response and
Well, I can read the response if you just do that. What do you
Frank's voice is
add
fine.
some flair.
it's a long one because there's several questions asked.
You can summarise it and put the long one in the report.
So yes, in a nutshell, the grant amount is $180,000 with a 50-50 from the council. So we're talking about a $370,000 total as a program. And so far we have done the thermal upgrade at the Port Huron Sports Centre. That's including roof insulation, double glazing, and heating replacement. That was completed in 24-25 financial year. The moment we are in the middle of amending the grant deed by having the council depot, Dawsbridge waste transfer station, and the Huronville swimming pool add to the list of what was there. And we, through the modeling, so we're still at the planning phase or the feasibility analysis phase, given the change we made. And also we are waiting for the variation to be approved by the federal government before we can actually procure what's scoped. So through the modeling, it indicates in the best case scenario, so we're talking about the minimum electrical infrastructure upgrades, and hopefully the solar is not gonna, the price skyrocket in the next few months. So we're hoping to get about $3,000 to $17,000 per year over the next 20 years across the 4 sites. So we're talking about total $30,000 a year. We're hoping to save from the energy usage, and with the Port Huron Sports Centre benefiting the most, because the Port Huron Sports Centre operates 12 months a year, and it's a heated swimming pool there with a sauna, so it's a quite big energy consumption there. So this grant, so if we can have all the scope implemented, so we're talking about, we expect a 50% reduction in the energy bill across the 4 sites. So that's made 7% total of council's total metered electricity expenditure. And the primary benefit is having the solar generated power offset the energy used by on-site rather than feed into the grid. Because we expect, or we size the solar panel to offset energy, knowing that the feeding in probably is less and less beneficial, or financial returns diminishing in that space. And we're talking about, or expect about 170 tons of CO2 per year get offsetted by having the solar panel. So that's consistent with council's climate change action commitments.
That's about, the summary of that is it's pretty well a 10-year payback period, but after that we'll have another 10 years where it's, but yeah, so.
So ranging from 7 to 11 years.
Thanks, man.
Do you have any other? Yes.
Well, I'd have a question that's following my interest or latest interest in sewer and capacities and everything related to that. So this time I would like to know if we have knowledge about the percentage of how many houses how many houses are connected to sewer infrastructure, and how many houses or developments are not connected to sewer infrastructure. Like what's, because we're a rural council, I would say, sorry?
Across the whole valley?
Yeah.
Percent split?
Percent split, yeah. Because being a rural council, I would assume that we have a higher number of on-site solutions, but that might be wrong because we also got 5 very vibrant population centers, and those are serviced by sewer. So, more people in this area will provide a bigger input. So I just want to know, understand the numbers. And while I'm able to provide some context, why I'm interested in that is I would like to see if there's any merit in incentivizing the use of compost toilets in rural regional areas. And the reason for that being primarily the savings that can be achieved in water usage. So everybody living rurally will be on tank water. It's not raining, you don't have much of it, and if you're flushing your toilet with it, there could be better uses. So there's a huge potential for water savings. There's also a potential for huge savings in the construction of land application areas. Like if you have a standard on-site wastewater management system that will require, depending on the size of the house, a certain area, you put a compost toilet into this house, it will require 60% less land application area, which is a significant saving in terms of materials and costs that go into that. And ultimately, it's human manure is a resource. You hot compost that stuff, you put it around your orchard or in your garden, and you're growing really, really good veggies and fruit without having to use fertilizer. So, depending on what the ratio there is, I was wondering if there is merit to support or incentivize the transition to compost toilets for the reasons I've just mentioned before.
Well, I can, probably one that we'll take on.
I'll take it on notice.
Yeah.
What I will do through you, Mayor, is so we report in the monthly highlights, we report under the building and plumbing section. It's page 28 and 91 of the public agenda. I don't know what it is in our agenda. We report on the different types of permits and low-risk plumbing that we get. You'll see year to date, that's calendar year to date, plumbing, CLC and permits, we've got 26. It's safe to roughly assume that the majority of that 26 are going to be on-site wastewater systems. If you look at low-risk plumbing, we've got year-to-date 8. Not all of those will be connection to sewer. Some of them will just be minor changes to on-site plumbing. Yeah. But you could make an assumption that 75% of those are connection to sewer. So it gives you sort of a sense, because the broader exercise would be a bit of a GIS exercise where we look at the reticulation system, which we have the layer, do a selection of cadastral parcels that are within a particular distance of that. We could easily spin up how many properties would need on-site wastewater versus connection to have potential for connection to sewer. But that will give you a sense. And I look back for a couple of years, we're averaging about 100 or so permits related to on-site wastewater per year. So 100 applications for on-site wastewater treatment. In terms of composting, we do get them. You're 100% correct. They still need some application area for the liquid that is part of that process, but it does reduce it. One thing I'd put in there, I've got a very passionate team. They love this sort of discussion. So we'll take it on notice and we'll come back with something because they love the discussion. And I appreciate you giving me an early heads up earlier today about the question. Is grey water is an area where I see a huge potential for us to look at water savings and those additional benefits. Because at the moment, if you look at those on-site treatment, they are treating both black water, being from sewer, basically black water coming from your toilets, but also grey water coming from your showers, your baths, your sinks. So again, that application area is having to deal with all of that. There's huge scope in that space for us to look at that and the reuse of that. And I come from a country where we reuse our grey water. We capture it and we use it for irrigation, we use it for flushing our toilets, we use it for all those sorts of things. So it's not something new, it's just looking at what others are doing in that space. So, but yes, there is potential to both in the blackwater and grey water space look at how we can incentivise uptake of those different ways that we can conserve water and access those additional benefits from that. So we'll come back to you on notice with the report.
Thank you.
No problems. Do I have any other? Yes?
Thank you, Mayor. Just further to what Councillor Lucas and
Thank you very much.
No worries, thank
See,
you.
was saying, it's an interesting conversation because I've got some clients that have a compost toilet and I don't know anything about compost toilets. They're very clean and there's no aroma, and it just actually was quite a surprise because I imagined something like Cockle Creek years ago, you know. I think we can all affiliate. That's all we need to say there. And it was actually nothing like that at all. It was really surprising, but I also think because we have an aerated water treatment system, it's a commercial one, we've got 800 foot of hose. It's also a fire, like it protects us from fire because we ran it like, well, it had to be run where it had to be run, but like over the bank and down the driveway, so it keeps the grass and the trees wet and green all the time. So I often wonder sometimes when we're thinking about waste systems, you know, I don't think it relates specifically to fire management, but it could, because anything that keeps grass wet, I mean, as I say, we've got a big one because we were halfway through things and ended up having to put this massive Mood Food have one the same size as this up the road. But anyway, it was a bit overkill. But the point being, the grass stays really, really wet and green, and it protects our house from a great big fire coming through because there's 800. So can we start using water as a safety thing that we would otherwise flush away or not utilise, somehow integrating with the fire management arrangement? But we used to pump our grey water in our flowers, never had an aphid, never had anything, everything was lovely. So I think we're not utilising anything around the whole sewerage, toilet, you know. I mean, we are, but we're just doing what we have to do on permits. And I would like to step out of that mould a bit as well and see something a bit more practical and a bit more usable and a bit more sustainable. But I don't know where that fits in the planning
And the rules, maybe.
and the rules, you know.
Well, we'll wait for the reply.
It's an interesting conversation because a lot of people at the minute in Cygnet are paying for sewage, but they're not connected to sewage. But because the line runs up Mary Street, they're still paying to be connected to a service that they're not receiving. So I'm kind of like, that's a bit weird as well. Anyway, it's just an observation. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Well, if you have no others, we'll move on. There's no motions tonight on notice. So we'll go through to the start of general reports is 15.018/26. Councillor appointment, Greg Norris Memorial Health Scholarship. I refer the council to the recommendation of this report, and no, I don't have to leave. So just let you know. I've asked the question. So do I have a councillor to move the motion, please? Councillor O'Neill and Councillor Robinson. Councillor O'Neill, do you wish to?
No, Mayor, I think it's all pretty straightforward.
Thank you. Do I have any other comments or for against or anything? No.
This is congratulations, isn't it, for being the, yes, fitting something else in.
Yeah, good on you guys. Okay, so I'll put that motion. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That's all councillors, and the motion is carried. We go to 15.019/26, plumbing approval process reform. I refer the councillors to the recommendation. Do I have a councillor to move the motion? Councillor Maruzak, and seconded by Councillor Thorpe. Councillor Maruzak, do you wish to speak to this report?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, indeed, I would, as it concerns my latest favourite topic. Yeah, great submission. I think council made a good point, or in the submission it becomes very clear that just fast tracking at the front end will not necessarily bring the results that are hoped for just because you fast track this particular part. There are other components that might shake up the smooth processes. So yeah, the emphasis on a clearly designed, a well-designed process is important, and I appreciate that. I also like this CLC package that is recommended in the answer to question 16 within the submission papers. Because yeah, like if you apply for a plumbing permit for a Class 1 building, which is residential, you usually put building approved plans through at the same time. So if there is a package, I can clearly see how this would improve the efficiencies because all the information is provided to the planning or to the approving authority at the same time. So that kind of makes sense. One thing that I kind of struggle a little bit with is the use of on-site disposal systems of wastewater, as I just asked before. They are excluded in this fast tracking process because the risk is deemed too high. I was wondering if there is merit to include them on the grounds that if there is a on-site wastewater management system, this is usually designed by a suitably qualified person who certifies this system. So technically, I could see that as the same as the inlet into the sewer service point. Assuming there are all the relevant inspections in place, which in our submission we made clear that we would recommend to keep them as they are important, what would the effects on the level of risk be if inspections are required, if the documentation of or the design by the wastewater system designer is provided and signed off, certified, and part of the CLC package anyway? Why would we discriminate against that? That would be my question. And would there be merit to change our position on this particular point? Because in the submission, we agree, the standpoint at the moment is we agree that this is too risky. I would like to open the discussion if we are of the opinion or if we think that this is not risky enough, if the design and documentation are provided, at the right time and inspections are carried out at the right time.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. Can I pass that through? Or do we take that on?
I think we have to deal with it.
We have to deal with it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we're in a position.
Well, just while you're gathering your thoughts, when we did our extension, we got something cycle put in the ground and stuff like that, and quite right, we had to come up with a suitably qualified drafted plan with where it was all going, and I pay $145, I think, every 3 months for somebody to turn up and go, yep, that's still there, and walk away, and that's far less inspection, I think, that somebody with a normal septic system is required to do, and certainly no other requirements to make sure your plumbing system was working and stuff. So they're a very overly regulated device, if you ask me. And I'd even argue that that's to do it every 3 months is a disincentive to people putting in environmentally appropriate wastewater systems. Yeah.
I mean, sometimes you don't even have a choice. There are different systems. There are the aerated systems, there's the traditional septic tank, and depending on the soil conditions on your property, you might have to use one or the other. You might not be able to use a septic tank because you're sitting on clay and that stuff just doesn't go anywhere. So depending on what the site conditions are, it will be a different system potentially anyway. But regardless of the system used, if it's an approved and certified system, for me, just technically speaking, this is as good as a sewer connection point to
a inspected.
Yeah, and they inspect it, so it's like they inspect, and like inspections, once they're installed and operational, when you got one of those aerated systems or EnviroCycle, you have to get somebody in every 3 months to check on it. If you just got a standard septic system, you don't. Just whenever the bucket is full, you get a pumper truck in, and then it's dealt with.
Which is, I suppose, my point is that, every 3 months, you're talking about they're excluded from the initial setup. But as soon as they're set up, within 3 months, somebody's looking at it,
Yeah.
and they have to look at the installation of it as well. They're meant to technically walk the whole driveway
they
and
do.
check and
At
stuff. So
ours.
it's if that's been installed incorrectly, you would hope that within the first couple of inspections somebody would identify that.
Well, they check the sprinklers and they check the pH and then they check the motors. No, they're pretty stringent.
We have, might have a direction.
So through your mayor, understanding where the councillor is coming from, there are some things that I think that we would need to consider to give you some advice on before we actually went down that track, because as you have identified, they are the high risk. So appreciating there are some off-the-shelf appliances and things which may be suitable for it. There is still an Australian standard that it gets assessed against. These are always assessed to the environmental health officer, so they've got special expertise on that. So we'd want to get you some more advice from them in relation to the key risks that go along with that, and because you've got soil analysis, number of occupants of a residence, and all those sorts of things which impact it. So perhaps, and I'm just contemplating on the fact that if we're going to frame something tonight, we're going to be here for a little while actually framing what that is, or whether we just leave this one as a fast track and we do a follow-up sort of further to this, do a circulation out of council, give you some advice, circulate out of council and follow that up with the government.
When was the Monday, 20th of April?
So we've got time to circulate. So we did the same thing with something at the last meeting. The density.
With the density.
The density. So we can do the same thing.
Because if we don't vote on it,
Yeah, I understand.
it won't be,
Well, we've got to consider space allowances as well, like they're not going to fit in suburbia particularly well.
I think they see these applications on a daily basis. I think it's important that we go back to them and go, what's the percentage of these things are you picking up issues that we're having to address? Because ultimately what we're doing is we're protecting those people that are going to be utilising the system and appreciating all the comments. I totally hear where you're coming from, and I think there's merit in us exploring it. But go back to the people, understand what they're picking up. We can give you that information, and then we can make a determination of risk based on that, and then go forward from there.
No, I agree. Thank you.
yes.
I must admit, this report is information dense, I think, and the proposal is information dense. So one of the points somewhere was about inspection of sites. So we have a plumbing inspector who inspects every installation, and this proposal is saying not to do that. Is that my reading of it? So the government's saying that we shouldn't be doing post-installation or inspections of plumbing installations. Is that what the...
Well, I think someone should be doing it, though.
Not blanket, no, just for specific cases.
So at the moment it's blanket though, is it? And what the...
Inspections.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the minister's proposing that we pull back and we don't do blanket.
Those that are lower risk.
Yep. And are we agreeing with that or not? I got a bit confused with what we were...
So through you, Mayor, just to add into the discussion, the other part of it is the notification requirements that go with it. So something which is appropriately designed can be certified that we accept. But there will still be plumbing installations which are hidden, which are still appropriate too. So we're supporting that, but there are hidden plumbing installations, so in walls and under floors and whatever, that we're saying are still high risk that require an inspection. So there may be a reduction in what needs to be inspected, but there are still some high risk things with those that you can't just simply say that's notifiable, go away, and you've got a purchaser of a house where there's water coming through the concrete. Probably not the best example, but...
So this is kind of how it was years ago. You just built it and nobody came to check. So we don't really want to continue that because now we've got all these problems. That's pretty much it,
That's what
isn't
the
it?
minister's wanting us to go.
That's right, he wants us to go backwards.
Well,
Fair
not to
enough.
all of them though, they're saying.
But how much time though realistically would we save if it's only going to be, if we still have to check things to make sure that she's all signed off and everyone's legal and protected and we are and they are. So I get designing like something else, but I mean, realistically, somebody's still going to have to go.
They want it, the fast track wants to maintain the ability to undertake inspections, but just not mandated across the board. So
Yeah.
it's effectively opening the gate for a risk-based approach to
Exactly.
this, which we ultimately agree with. Like, we're just a risk-based organisation that's just like, get out of it. If we don't need to be there, get out of there. But there is still elements of plumbing, which is what Matt's talking about, where it is in everyone's interest to make sure that it's inspected, because history shows us that if there's not an inspection process, the work quality will probably decline.
And I suppose we live in a world of digital stuff. So, and I don't know if this allows for this, but can the inspection be somebody sending digital photos of the installation before they plaster the wall? Do we physically go there for every step in the process?
Through you, Mayor. So we do a hybrid of that. COVID was a good opportunity for us to test the digital thing. It's effective in some cases, and it goes back to what Matt was saying, which is some of that plumbing needs on-site inspection. It's very technical in terms of watermarks and connection points and all that jazz. The photos sometimes are not. So we already do that. Those ones that are easy and obvious, we'll go through the photo route, but most of the time it requires that on site. And being closer to the plumbing component, I know that we pick up a lot of request. We issued directions around fixing things that need to meet code and standard in that plumbing space. They are effective, those.
Including plumbing, and we're picking up other things as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is they are effective, and ultimately, if we think back to how it used to be, to Councillor Armstrong's point, is the reason we have these inspections is a control mechanism that was put in place because of all those issues that people were facing 30 odd years ago. So I think what we're putting forward here is to strike a balance. We get the intent, but it's to strike a balance in that space.
We'll be becoming a building inspector next.
Hush.
Okay, so,
So through you, Mayor, with the discussion and leave that for the move in the second. B would be expanded to the submission be made in relation to the plumbing approval process reform discussion paper as set out in attachment A2 to this report, with amendments to be prepared by staff in consultation with the councillors to include on-site wastewater treatment systems to be considered as part of the process reform.
And then we leave it to the discretion of the CEO to sign off.
We will circulate the submission and give you the advice with that.
so the mover and the seconder happy with that? Yep. Okay. Do I have any other questions with that? If not,
I'll just say one thing. It's worth getting these right. We've been, back in town a lot lately, talking with our colleagues in state government, and the number of times our recent submissions, and I know you guys have been exhausted with 1,000-page agendas, and we've been exhausted writing it. The number of times that our helpful, submissions, providing evidence of how you can do things, suggesting better ways to do it based on our experience as the actual administrators of this stuff, have being really well received. I was at DPAC today, meeting with the Deputy Premier, and our submission on the single startup permits came up. And we were having a discussion about the broader planning reform as it relates to single startup permits and workarounds and technology solutions and fixing legislation. So it's worth for all the work that we're all putting into getting these things done. It is really well worth it. So I just want to commend you for reading them and giving us suggestions to make them better. It's appreciated.
well done.
Can I just say one thing? I agree with you because somebody commented to me that it's really comforting that when we make a statement about something, we make it clear and concise. We give the reasons we are or aren't. We offer alternative thought processes, and it makes it so that people can actually understand why we've said yes, why we've said no. And I asked somebody campaigning how they were trying to do something. And all I got was, well, you know, we're just trying to make things easier. But people don't want that solution. They want this solution where we've got dots and points and a process and, you know, the journey to the other side. So I think this is something that hasn't happened a lot with council before, and it's a bit new, and it's quite refreshing that although we're all we're telling them why, you know, and what we want and what they want. And I think we're getting better outcomes because, you know, we're actually found our voice. But I mean, we are smashing at the Huon Valley Council, just saying, so I mean, you know.
Let's go back to the end.
Setting the bar.
Yeah, setting the bar high, yeah.
Keep up everybody else.
All right, do you want to close then?
Thank
You're
you.
happy with
I
it?
appreciate the
Yep.
rewording, but yeah, happy with that. Thank you very much.
Okay, well, I'll put that motion. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That's all councillors present and the motion is carried. Thank you. Report number 15.020/26, draft amendment 01-2026 state planning provisions. I refer to councillors to the recommendation of this report. Do I have a councillor to move the motion? Councillor Jessup and a seconder? Councillor Rozak, thank you. Do you wish to speak to this motion?
Yeah, I'll make it. I've got a couple of technical points again, and an information deep proposal. But I suppose one of the annoyances for me, I suppose, is that every meeting we talk about poor quality planning rules and regulations, and it seems that a minister gets a hot topic issue that they want to upgrade, suddenly the whole paper upgrading the SPPs for one particular purpose. And I just make a note in passing that that's a bit frustrating when, as you say, we're spending, you know, a third of our meetings, every meeting, talking about all the stuff in the planning rules, that it just makes life so difficult for people to actually just get ahead and build things. But anyway, but generally, look, I suppose what this paper hasn't said to me, and I've got to pinch a bit of Councillor Armstrong's concerns here, but she can state as well. It hasn't done a sort of risk assessment of if you're increasing the size of these properties by effectively 50% to 90 square metres, how much impact has been considered in terms of the impact on our sewer system that is operating at 1.35% times capacity every day, power usage and stuff like that. And I'm not technical enough, and there are probably others in the room who are technical enough who can tell me not to worry about it versus worrying about it. So that's the only thing that I see with the document. It doesn't sort of give a risk base. It just says, well, this is how we're going to change here and fix that there and plonk an extra 50% larger property in the backyard. So I don't know if that's a question or not, or if somebody technically informed can tell me not to worry about that or not.
Well, I think it's a valid, totally valid observation, and yes, the Wells nodding his head off. The BITSA reform that's coming through on this stuff is frustrating to deal with.
I probably don't need to comment on that. You don't need to make that political comment. That was me. But no, just more on the is this going to cause infrastructure difficulties?
It could, but yeah, the work hasn't been done to assess to what extent that risk is present. In some cases, it will be, they're probably imagining that these are large blocks in sort of more rural areas or something, and it'll be fine. But in our location, there's plenty of places where there'd be completely opportunity to do it on sewer connections, and as you rightly point out, our sewer treatment plants are oversubscribed down here. I forget the number, but it's in the hundreds of sewer treatment plants around the state that are oversubscribed. So the risk is very real and hasn't been addressed.
And I sort of see this, and I'm actually quite a supporter of infill, but I see this as urban infill by stealth as well. I think it's probably going to be much more of an impact in the North Hobarts and the New Towns and places like that. To some extent, larger properties that we've got, they're all on their own septic systems and their own water, and it's probably going to make minimal impact to infrastructure. But yeah, so.
So you had,
That was one question. I'm happy for other people to talk generic, but I've got a very specific question about a clause, that's all, but I'm happy to come back to that one.
we'll go for it.
Yeah, I'll go for it. So, point 4 in our table is clause 20.2 and 21.1 use table. In the row permitted for residential use class, delete the qualification, and the frustration is it doesn't say what the qualification is, and replace it with the following qualification, which I'm assuming are exemptions. So it doesn't need approval, or it's permitted if it's for a home-based business, an alteration to an existing dwelling, or a second residence. So do we know what the qualification was that it's replacing? And should we be worried about what that was?
Okay.
Which page are you? So,
So on our agenda, it's page 147, or it's mentioned a couple of times. At 147, it's point 4 of the consultation issues, and we've got no comment refer to detailed submission. So
thank you.
I just don't like things that says delete that, don't worry about it.
I don't want to flick in, but I've looked into that before, I think, and because they're proposing to change the name, the term that is used from ancillary building to secondary dwelling or secondary residence, that's the change under C. That's why it has to be replaced, because they're changing the name.
So it's still home-based, is still there.
I think the other qualifications are still there,
So it's not
but because the
added-
wording or how they, the term.
It says change clause 7. But anyway, thank you.
But yeah, by all means, this is just out of the back of my
Yeah.
head somewhere.
So if for a home-based business, an existing dwelling, and alterations and extensions to existing dwelling, already qualifications in there, and they're just adding on a secondary residence if associated with an existing single dwelling. So C, so if you're looking at that table, C is added effectively, if you want to plain English it.
So it does significantly then change. It is a densification, because it's effectively, rather than putting an extension, it's actually very clearly saying that this is a separate building that will have separate people living in it, that you can potentially rent to, doesn't need to be Granny anymore, you could potentially rent it to Joe Blow. Yeah.
There's no space allowance away from the house, all very independent really, isn't it?
Yeah.
No,
Well, same sewers and stuff.
In our submission, we talk about that exact point, Councillor Armstrong, which is we think there needs to be some consideration of what is the maximum distance from the house, because effectively what you're going to get is multiple dwellings. I'm just going to be honest, we're going to get multiple dwellings all over the rural landscape. I mean, I'm being a bit dramatic maybe, but you know what I mean? There is a risk here. I do agree with the sentiment.
I can specifically give you an example. When the department had a bright idea a few years ago to put pods in existing disability and other places. So my organisation got about 4 of these pods put into existing houses, and they're basically supersized containers with a kitchenette, a bedroom, and a bathroom. That's all. But where they've put them is sort of right in front of the house, this far away from windows, because they have to put them on the same plumbing. And there's no allowance for either the aesthetic of the person who lives in the existing place, or even the aesthetic of the person who
That's
lives
going into it.
elsewhere. So, and because the emphasis is on connecting to existing mains and housing, we're doing it to do it as cheaply as possible. That they literally, dumped it within a metre of other properties. So I don't know if you add then fire risks and all sorts of stuff to that as well.
There's an example locally in one of our group home facilities in the Hill where they've done that
Oh, is it? Okay.
up the road. It's not ideal.
So I'm glad we've addressed that one.
Yeah. Well, we're asking for it to be addressed, whether they listen to us, another thing.
I will. What should they listen to us?
No, they do.
We're really impressed with the level of engagement that seems to be coming through on this stuff. It does seem that there's a raised level of commitment to actually listen to councils that regulate this stuff, and that the consultation is genuine, which is really great.
Yeah, and as I sort of said when I opened it, I'm very supportive of this as a solution. Yeah, there's an issue that comes to my mind is why are we making it so hard for tiny homes, which are sort of a temporary solution as an alternative, but that's there. But a little bit again with the concern that people have about tiny homes is you don't want to trash the aesthetic of the community and the existing property for a short-term fix, really, because once it's built, people aren't going to move it or knock it down, you wouldn't think.
Okay. Yes, Councillor Armstrong?
Sorry, thanks, Mayor. So I've got lots of concerns about this because there's not enough information to make a decision about anything. I've got concerns that if you look at growth areas now, what once was a house on half an acre is now surrounded by 8 or 10 units on every single fence line with balconies hanging over the fence allowed because it's, subdivisions. What if those houses then start putting 90 square buildings in their backyards? So for instance, you've got a more an area that's suited to a certain group of people, shall we say, young people, old people, whatever. And then these people decide that they're going to rent that to some undesirable folk who are going to be tearing around all night and everything else. There's no regulation. We can't do anything about that. Like once these things are built, basically they can be rented to whoever. There was the proviso, I think, by some people I spoke with on Facebook that they're for family, but realistically they're not. They're for anybody. It's really just akin to having 2 houses on one small block and some rental income. But by not having enough stringent control over what's built, how do we know how many cars? We can't control noise. We can't control who's going to be there. It's not a granny flat, which used to be for specific use. I've got lots and lots of worries about this because we could end up in places that have enough room to put one there, and people will because they can, basically. And then what happens? Then we've taken away the peace and quiet and tranquility because we've allowed something to happen to people that have spent $800,000 building a nice house in a nice area, and now there's a bunch of, I'm using undesirable as an example. It could be murderers or drug smugglers or, I don't know what they are, but
They can live anywhere.
They can live anywhere. But you know what I'm saying? Like there's no regulations about, like really, there's nothing. Who can live there? There needs to be more specifications like granny flats were granny flats and bungalows were bungalows and additions were additions. But this is like, oh, you know what? You can just build a 90 square house. We don't really care. I know we've got, a shortage of homes but don't worry about it. It's probably bigger than the primary house and it's okay. You'll just get a few bucks and they probably won't be hitting the target of who they were actually wanting them to be built for in the first place. I think it's a shocking document and I don't think there's anything in there that really says anything about anything, not to be negative Nancy, but that was my sort of, having been through 2 planning schemes, I feel like everything that Minister does, he's going backwards, not forwards. I mean, I know he's grasping at straws because the tiny homes thing is really out there at the minute, it's a hot topic, but this is not going to fix the problem, probably will make it worse. Anyway, that's my thought process.
Mayor, we've had Councillor Jessup and Armstrong have both raised really genuine risk issues that really should be raised formally, we think. So, while the questions as part of the submission don't lead to this, we can absolutely include a cover letter. And if you want to amend a recommendation on this, that we include this as a covering letter, so we still provide the responses to the reform questions. But do that. Yeah, go for it.
What we did with the last
Yeah,
motion.
it's like it's like exactly like we did in the last one.
One of the things that none of this is touching on, because it's black letter planning law stuff, it relates back to amenity and social cohesion and social structures of communities. I think that's sort of what you're saying, and yeah, it is.
And I mean, we know that there's people, like let's just be honest, and we know that there's people living where they shouldn't be living. Like it's the current climate, you know. We don't want to see people homeless. We don't want to stop people from having a home or building a house or living in a tiny home or a caravan. And every area has got that happening, you know, but unless there's a massive risk to that, then those people need a house, they need a roof, they need something. I think this is different because I don't think this is going to actually target what Minister Vincent thinks that he's fixing. I think he's wrong. I think he's got it wrong. But more information, more questions might change my mind.
Yeah. Through me, I might just add, I totally get the approach, and I think given these amendments changing use classes in the rural and ag zone, it is a real risk. If we look back to our land use and development strategy, it's talking about, you know, densification in our settlement areas, and it goes to the question that was raised by Elizabeth in the public question time, which is we have people living in these outer areas.
Yeah.
Given that this is going to change that use class in those two zones, that is going to put more people scattered out in areas where there's low services, low access to support, those sorts of things. So appreciate the discussion, and we will capture them.
And conversely, there's also a lot of, we're talking about all the negative risks, but there is some real opportunities. We hear a lot from people that would get a lot out of this. We've heard from people that want those secondary dwellings legitimately for family members, all the rest of it. So there's absolutely, there is good intent in this change. It just hasn't thought through all the downside risks and had a rounded consideration of those.
But then those people can still access that service now. They could still put a granny flat in their yard, mostly, couldn't they? Like, this is not...
This is increasing sizes and things though.
Yeah, I know.
Making it.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I can see more the positive sides of it personally. And I know we all think of scenarios that we think might or might not happen, but I can think of if you've got a decent sized rural land lot, you're going to be living there, so you don't want undesirables coming in to live next to you. So I agree, we probably need to sit down and think of possible scenarios and nail it down a bit more, but I actually do think it's a solution to the problem.
I agree with that too. You've got a little bit more control over the situation, but I think that may not be what necessarily happens.
No, that's right. So we might be able to sit down and think about it a bit more.
Councillor.
Thank you, Mayor. I think, I understand where you're coming from, Councillor Armstrong, but I think, this is not a blanket kind of permission to do now granny flats or secondary dwellings everywhere. They will be still subject to a planning assessment if somebody wants to put that in. So, setbacks and all this kind of business, regardless of if your backyard in a low density residential is big enough and you can squeeze one of those in, it will be still subject to planning provisions and all that kind of business. So I don't think that this is a blanket provision for just doing that. What they're doing is they're increasing the size and they're changing the name to make it more contemporary or whatever. For me, it doesn't really matter, but the increasement in size, I think I agree, will just make a huge difference. When you look at 60 square meters, what can you put that in there if you want to have a decent sized bedroom? One bedroom, maybe two really pokey ones, and you get a living room and everything else that you need into this house as well. 90 square meters. If with clever design, you can get almost 3 bedrooms in there. And this is almost a full house for people, this can help to relieve the pressure on our housing markets and whatever, just bring our homes into the market. And therefore, I think it's a great idea. It is sort of like a stealth densification, but it still will be subject to planning approval. And therefore, I don't think that there is much to worry about, technically speaking, to increase the size. But I do agree with Councillor Jessup that we have to keep an eye on where is this densification happening, and is it in serviced areas, for example, where there's then a higher input onto our a treatment or wastewater system. In rural areas, well, you just dig another trench or put another absorption bed in, and that's sorted. But yeah, I think that's a valid point. But that's flowing on from there. Once we look at the particular circumstance, somebody wants to put one of those in, and it comes before us in council as planning authority, we will take it apart. I'm pretty sure. But as a general move towards increasing the options of secondary residence use, and I think I'm welcoming this.
Thank you. I'm going to go to the director here.
Please no.
Because I think you have some wording
So
there.
through you, Mayor, similar to the last item that we discussed, just proposing a paragraph B, and there are 3 dot points to this. So B will continue on with amendments to be prepared by the staff in consultation with councillors to include the capacity of supporting systems such as water and sewer services as a key risk, and potential impacts on surrounding residential amenity and impacts of densification in the rural and agriculture zones, including social impact.
Because there are a lot of considerations, because the primary houses have been built with roads, gutters, infrastructure in mind, and then you want to stick another house, probably the same size, next door to it. None of that was considered in the first permit development application.
In places like Glenorchy, you could probably fit 2 of them in the backyard.
Yeah.
Some of those old big blocks.
But they're going to have the same thing with parking issues and everything else.
Still, I think the planning scheme says, they have to share the services and all of that. So no extra meter, no extra water connection, no extra. It's going all through this one connection point. So it's not.
It's not totally separate.
Although with technology now you can put a power usage power meter in, and you can still almost sort of charge it out as a second rental, effectively.
Yeah, like yourself within your own arrangements, but
Yeah, that's right,
you're not getting another test networks.
But you'll still suck more power out and put more poo in.
Yeah.
So, Councillor Jessup and Councillor Mrozek, would you be happy with the changes to the recommendation?
Yeah, I'm happy with that amendment.
All right. Councillor Jessup, do you wish to close or?
Yes, if everybody's had their 2 cents worth. Look, there is no doubt there's a planning crisis. There's 4,000, 5,000 people waiting on the social housing list. We hear every day of family members who can't, their kids can't build a house, and you do something like this and you've suddenly taken, what, $300,000 off the cost of the house effectively. And I saw a big out-of-the-box company selling flat pack 90 square metres. There's no correlation, I'm saying, between the fact that they're advertising an exactly 90 square metre property and this amendment's been proposed. But so I can see that there are some.
Not.
Yeah, I'm sure there isn't, but it just so happened it was on the same day it was both announced. I do all of those social ideas. I'm absolutely supportive of, but as a planning authority vested in the land use of property, I think it's important that we raise some of those sort of more community social issues that we need to take into account. And I agree, Councillor Mrozek, that they are subject to planning approval still, but there's obviously a lessening of that if you're going to plonk one in the back of the house. So by its nature, there's going to be more noise and more light and more sound and more everything. So it's about the balance, I suppose. But yeah, I think it's an important consideration to allow, and support the
Come
motion.
through and we'll have, yeah, all right. Okay, well, I'll put that recommendation forward. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That's all, councillors. The motion is carried. Thanks, guys. Report number 15.021/26, draft amendment 01-2025 of the State Coastal Policy. I refer the councillor's recommendation of this report. Do I have a councillor to move the motion, please? Councillor Armstrong and Councillor Rozak. Councillor Armstrong.
Yes. No, thank you.
All right. Do I have any other comments on this motion?
This is a good report, easy to read.
No, don't have any. All right.
Well, the
Councillor Armstrong, no one thing?
I think the coastal thing's been discussed pretty well over the last few meetings. I think we've probably thrashed it to death. You know, I think we're all aware of where we are, where they are, but this pretty much just says what we've been saying. So, no, thank you, Mayor. That was all.
That's the case. I'll put the recommendation forward. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That's all councillors present. Thank you. Report number 15.022/26, Local Government Association Tasmania, General Meeting Motions for the 10th of April 2026. I refer the councillors to the recommendations of this report. Do I have a councillor to move the motion? Councillor Armstrong, second up. Councillor Robinson. Councillor Armstrong.
Who wants to talk to this? I think if people want to support the motion, they can support the motion. When you start talking about vaccinations and things, you know, it's a very interesting conversation. I'm glad that council are offering vaccinations. I also respect the fact that if people don't want to vaccinate, then they don't have to. You know, but I think I'm pretty happy with it overall. That's all. Thank you. It was the vaccination thing that struck my attention more so than everything else. I have lots of clients that are anti-vaccination and don't actually think that council should be offering these programs, which is a fair enough thought process for them. You know, they just don't want to have that. And I think we can offer it, but they don't need to take it up if they don't want to, you know. But I know that we'll draw criticism because there's vaccination in this report. It is what it is.
Yep, that's right. And we'll see what happens at the gap when we vote on the motion.
And the rest of it was pretty ordinary.
All right. Do I have any other councillors' comments on this?
You're working through the education system, which is not a local government responsibility.
No, that's right. We're just supporting it.
And managing health outcomes, which again is not a local government responsibility.
It's not often how people see it though, when council put out forms and things, you know, how everything's related to council. And I think...
I've actually just done it this year. I've just done it, and that council used a third-party provider, which just says this is not within the capacity of a council. I totally agree. Like, here we are on the front line with our community. And as an organisation, we need to be interested in kids. We need to be interested in education and self-improvement, but and in well-being and health. But yeah, state government.
Yeah. I know. I think none of this. I mean, there's always been this topic, and I think probably since COVID, people have had a whole different thought process about everything. You know,
And if I distract you for one moment, the rats absolutely nailed my swede crop this year. But we had a record of 3 from 2 traps in a night.
I'm pleased about the no poison thing.
Anyway.
If I read this motion right, we already have an obligation under Section 57 to have a municipal-wide implementation plan. So isn't this sort of downgrading that slightly? It's basically saying education should do their job, and we can do one if we want it.
Yeah, so through you, Mayor, the motion is saying this should be a state government responsibility.
Yes, that's correct.
Not passed on.
Yes.
Good. Yeah, no, I agree with that.
Yeah.
Public health, as I recall, is a state government funded thing. So the other one with the rat baits, the second generation ones, do we use them, or do we use third generation baits in council?
You go. Rat
I'm
bait.
not track questions.
Sorry, Frank, for,
Rat bait.
which, are we using second generation or third generation
Now,
baits?
since 2022, we have phased out. So our pest control contractors phased that out.
So I did check with Nutrien, and many of the rat baits that we have already a third generation in there, and they're going to stay. But there's a certain well-known and old one that begins with rat will no longer be available, I think is my understanding.
Which will be really good because that's been responsible for a lot of domestic pets deaths as well over the years. So
Any other comments? No? All right. Councillor Armstrong, are you happy for me to put that forward?
yes, I am. I just got one more thing though. Can we link, or do we have? I don't know whether I read it somewhere. I can't remember. What people can use as poison somewhere on our website? On our website, because we've advertised that we've not to use that little box with the rat on it. Can we just list an alternative for them to buy? I know that there's Radicure and Radivan and Talon and all those sorts of things, but I'm not sure where they fall in the spectrum of 1s, 2s, 3s, or 4s.
Yeah, I don't know who advertises that.
I don't want to be putting specific products and recommendations on our website for commercial products or
We have some
maintaining.
revenue.
Sure, it's allowed.
We use.
It's also in that space.
Because I've already been asked what people can use, and I said, I don't know, you'll have to go and talk to somebody.
Go to Roberts.
Yeah.
Ask them.
Yeah, there's plenty of ways to find out, and ultimately the second generation ones being removed from shelves.
Well,
So yeah,
They have that, and I popped it on Monday, and they said by the end of the week that
Yeah.
those other brands will all be gone.
Okay.
Yeah, well, that was good.
Okay. Well, if that's the case then, I'll put that motion, or recommendation forward. All in favour, please raise your hand. That's all councillors, and the motion is carried. Report number 16.004/26, proposed name change, Sherwood Hill Vista. A little bit,
Where did they give these names?
yeah, but it's a little bit more palatable than the last one we had. So,
Market.
yeah. Yeah.
So it's okay.
I refer the councillors a recommendation. Do I have a councillor to move that motion, please? Councillor Jessup and a seconder, Councillor Rozak. Do you need to speak to this, Councillor Jessup? Good. I'll put that forward. All in favour, please raise your hand. That's all councillors. Well done.
Silver Fox Vista or something.
Well, Dave and I live up Silver Hill Heights, don't we, Dave?
Okay, report number 16.005/26, finance report, February 2026. I refer the councillors to the recommendation of this report. Do I have a councillor to move the recommendation? Move the motion. Yes, Councillor Robinson, and a seconder? Councillor O'Neill? Councillor Robinson, you've got anything to send through to the director?
No, I haven't.
Oh, damn, I should have prepared.
Well done.
I'm quite pleased with the report, apart from noting that the comment about a slight increase in rates delays,
Yeah.
and I'm watching that, as I expect you guys are too.
Do I have any others? Yes?
I can report that the director did very well at the audit panel meeting yesterday. It was, and they did actually ask some quite good questions, and the audit panel were quite happy. There was a bit of a question around the implementation of capital, which people who read this might have picked up, but basically I think the answer was that largely that's because we do a lot of that in summer, so there's a bit of catch up there. But I do think going back to the diesel thing, I do think we should be looking at if prices go where people are saying they go at delaying projects and stuff, but I'm really also very conscious about all the local contractors whose business models are built in around our business, and we don't want them to necessarily have
Turn the lights off.
Yeah, that's right, because they won't
That's right.
they won't turn them back on, and that's a concern. And I suppose the broader contingency is, when we go to look at the financial modelling this year, you know, pundits are saying that we're looking at 6 months minimum of just with the damage that's been done now, let alone any other craziness of exceedingly high fuel prices. So I think that's something we're all going to have to look at with the financial modelling
Will be kept
in
up
a
to
couple of
date.
months.
Yep, that's right. I'm sure we will.
Yeah, well,
be.
that's going to be the significant, as we talked about at Audit Panel yesterday. We've got our core services now. We're pretty well balanced. It's a function of staffing costs. You know, no surprises. We've got a plan. We're on that trajectory. So that on that level, we're stable. But it's these externalities that are really going to focus our attention for this year's budget setting.
Yeah, I think 2 of our major contractors already had to put up their prices 10%, which I think is, given that at least half their costs, I suspect, would be straight diesel. I reckon they're lowballing that at the
It's
moment, I reckon.
yeah, really hard to people sort of might know who we can't talk about people's contracts and their pricing. So,
Well, and I don't know how much our prices are fixed anyway and stuff like that, but I'm assuming any ad hoc services we buy outside of contracted services are going to go up. But I suppose the risk, Mayor, is even with contracted services, if we hold a gun to people's head to adhere to a contracted price, when we know it's going to drive them into significant hardship, as a moral citizen, as a moral corporate citizen, I think we would have real.
we've got some discussions to be had.
And the short answer is we can't, and we need to go open book, because also if we play hardball and they say, well, we just can't do it, we're out, then we go back to market, and this isn't because they're gouging, it's because everyone is sharing the same pain. So we've been through a tender process, they've demonstrated they can do it for the best price. They can still do it for the best price, albeit the entire market has shifted because of fuel price.
Yeah.
It's really unpalatable, but we need to chart a very, very careful course. And look, it's why we try to it's why we value our local contractors so highly, the strategic working relationship we've got with them. And we hold them to account, as we should. They know, and they're ratepayers. They know that the money we spend is on behalf of ratepayers. But we also have a trusting relationship when they're not trying to gouge us. And in these kind of times, we've really got to look after them.
Yep. Do I have any other comments on the financial report? Any closing, Councillor?
I noticed there's a
Oh.
pool mentioned in there. We're going to start the pool soon.
You got a question? What's
The Hillingdale swimming pool.
That's in this budget.
there's a paper on that. On
Yes,
the,
I know.
Yeah.
But are we planning, like, is there a short-term plan other than all those scenarios? Like, do we know when we're going to start something?
So it's not.
We have to vote.
We're still in the budget paper. It's
Yeah,
not-
that's right.
It's
We
not
haven't.
going to be in this financial year, is it?
Okay, so it'll be a couple of years probably. So we're looking reasonably long-term.
The Yulva pool
Next year.
next year.
Okay, so
Yeah.
It's the next item.
That's the next item.
But we have to, vote
But it'll
on.
probably carry across a couple of financial years, I suspect.
I just noticed that was, people have asked me, people would hear the pool and
Well, maybe we can discuss that when we get to the next one.
I'm too scared to talk about pools these days.
Was it my motion? No, whose motion?
No, okay, it's Amy's. Yeah.
No, I was just thinking ahead and probably zooming too far ahead. That was all.
Well, you can zoom into the next report number in a minute. So, Councillor Robinson, do you?
Accept the financial report.
Thank you.
Gratitude.
All those in favour, please raise your hand. That's all councillors. Okay, that's carried. Report number 17.003/26, renewal of the Yulva swimming pool. I refer the councillors to the recommendation of this report. Do I have a councillor to move the motion? Councillor Robinson, and a seconder, Councillor O'Neill. Councillor Robinson?
I do think we needed different terminology for bronze, silver and gold. I thought maybe we could have a splash of, 3 million.
1 splash, 2 splash, or 3 splash.
Well, then we could go for a dunking. And then we could go for a deep dive or an inundation for the, it's not double figure, double million figure. Sorry.
Yeah, okay. I'm just thinking, you know, like, yeah, okay, we've got a crisis here,
But
and
it's a splash, isn't
Dog
it?
pedal, breaststroke, backstroke maybe.
you
It's
can
a,
call it whatever you like.
it's a splash, and as you read through the numbers, get bigger towards heavy inundation for our financial position. I note, and we had a briefing on this in workshop, and there was a number, 26,312 visitors, which I clarified was visits, because that's, I guess, there's a value proposition question in my mind in terms of how important is this for the full community which we serve. Absolutely recognising that it's hugely important for some people, but there will be other people for whom it is not important. However, there's also, we're speaking about vaccinations, but there's also a broader, I think, role or duty in the same way that we teach school kids to swim, to provide for, it's the fitness, it's the health, and it's the safety of knowing how to behave around water, because we live, every time I look around this room, all the beautiful paintings on the wall have water in them. Yeah, I'm in my mind, I'm happy with the proposal, but the interest is in stepping the stages out. I feel a bit of caution that we don't start scoping silver or gold or deep stuff until we know how we're going with delivering that first bronze stage, the splash.
Well, I believe though that we're not going to be able to move through because we won't have the money unless we source it, I suppose.
Yeah, and I think, and I commend that it is really valuable to put those scoping options on the table, because sometimes the money comes up. There are enough other rural communities in Tasmania where the money has come up and a wonderful new pool complex has appeared. And I think we've got just as good an argument for that as anybody else. But yeah, stepping it out I think is really wise.
Do I have any other? I'll go Councillor O'Neill and then Councillor Jessup.
Yep. Look, my understanding at the workshop was we definitely agreed that we have to reline the pool, and that's in the budget already, so there's no question there. But there are question marks. Do we tile, or is there an epoxy process we can go through, which we've got no idea of the costing of those two different systems.
I think tiling, wasn't it?
We're looking at tiling, it was 1.5 million. But I didn't think we said we'd like to have a safety access ramp, but we didn't actually definitely say we'd approve that until we understood the budget better, and that was still up in the air a little bit. I'd like to have an overview, before we make a full decision on that. I think we should have an overview on where council expenditure is going in our sporting infrastructure, and make sure it's being evenly distributed around the population areas. I think some areas are missing out at the moment.
Any other? Thank you, Dave.
Thanks, Mayor. One of the studies that we archived not that long ago, I think, was the Greater Huonville Recreation Plan. It'd be interesting to go back to that and look at where this sits, because that was a council-wide study. So it'd be interesting as a separate sort of paper to get a look at some sort of analysis of, well, what did we think the community wanted and needed probably 5 or 6 years ago when it was done, versus where we're up to in that sort of cookbook list. Now, some of those things we were never going to do. But yeah, we've been doing bits and pieces like the Mosquito Point kayaking thing and the this and the that. But that's sort of just partly in response to Dave's comment that we do need. It does sometimes feel a bit ad hoc with we've got something's broken, we need to fix it versus sort of thing. But going to the costs, I think having and I can't remember if the proposal was to do the first stage, but have a shovel-ready set of drawings and concepts for the second and third stage in case we just happen to become a marginal seat of clerk or something like that in the future. It might change my view on which model of redistribution I should support. Is that right? We're just on that first thing. We were going to do a plan for the bigger picture or not?
Yes, that's the last part of the recommendation, and the reason it's tied to the budget is it's not just to have a concept design that Yahoo, let's get a grant for it. It would also be because we know that we've then got to maintain the thing, and that comes out of the bottom line. So it would be the reason it's tied to the budget bid process is yes, we get the designs, we do the work, and we get it, we get the business case to demonstrate how we're going to afford this into the long term. So we are putting money aside so that we can maintain it, we can renew it, and to Councillor O'Neill's point around equitable distribution of funding for sporting assets, I'd tie it back to the direction we got from Council last month around the asset management strategy generally. I think it was last month. Things are moving quickly, where we have all sorts of residents who enjoy all sorts of different cultural, sporting, all sorts of stuff. And, it's actually that the point of that change in that asset strategy and the work that we're doing now is exactly addressing that. Have we got a fair distribution of just assets generally so that there's opportunities for people to participate in all things that they want and then make some values-based decisions around, that thing that was loved some time ago is no longer a contemporary need, but because the Huonville swimming pool is the central swimming pool, whatever we need, we're making decisions to divest that and invest in this one over here. So I think it's broader than just sporting facilities.
And the and the RAB for compliance, the excess RAB, I think if we was to upgrade our pool without doing that, we'd have some people knocking on our door.
It's almost, and we're a hyper-aging community, so we're all going to be crawling down that ramp before very much longer, Mayor. So we've got 1.5 million already sitting in our asset renewal reserve, and we can't. Are we going to draw the extra 2 million that we would need to do this? Does that get drawn from that capital reserve, or does it need to come from? And this is obviously a question for Ray, or does it come out of our operating costs? So where does the cash come from? Okay, would the Auditor General allow us to use our capital reserve to pull the 3.5 million out of? In terms of where the cash comes from.
We'll just have to get
Plus one.
Yeah.
If we can.
So this is not including our 1.5 we already have.
No, it's 3.5 all up. So there's 1.5 we've sort of put in a shoebox already.
Yeah.
But the question is where. Well, it is in a shoebox already. Yeah, quite right. With 13 million other dollars there, so there's already a fair whack of asset thing. So where does the 2 million come from?
We can reallocate from within our capital funds, or we draw on our cash reserves.
Okay, so we've got that option. We can make that decision. Okay, because obviously the cash reserves are
noting that our capital reserves are effectively spoken for and built into the long-term financial plan.
What we have.
And that's where I'm talking about. When you're making those kind of decisions, ELT would be pressing you to go, okay, well, what's coming off, and is that an asset that we're divesting? Or
absolutely.
Yep.
So and I note that there's two things coming down the pipeline for us. Yep. One is we're doing a formal review of all our assets at the moment. So we might find some sleeping dogs there. An engineering review, I should say, sort of thing. But we also note that in the audit this year, the audit office is actually specifically looking at asset valuations as one of their key issues. And again, a frustration, let me get on my bandwagon, why they don't stipulate audit schedules in Tasmania, I've got no idea. So every council can roughly do what they like. So the Huon Pool, for example, was being depreciated over 100 years, which we all knew when we got into this job was just a farce. So what I couldn't see, I saw $130,000 operating costs, a deficit, of which a fair whack of that sounds like there's fixing stuff that's breaking anyway, so that may drop down. But what was the depreciation on the 3.5 million? What was going to be the annual depreciation cost to our budget for that?
That's the 3.5 million. Actually, it's going to be as a capital addition to the existing residual value. So I probably need to do a detailed calculation because different elements would have different life. So if, let's say, put a 30 years, because that's what suggested we're going to get extended life by another 30 to 35 years. So you put 30 years over that 3.5 million, we talk about $100,000 addition depreciation a year.
How much? 100?
$100,000. Yeah.
So, thank you. You're quicker than my calculator was. So what is that in terms of a rate rise? To be really, really blunt.
1% is about 100. I think it's 150,000 at the moment.
Okay. So to make our balance, to make our budget balance, if we agree to this, we're going to have to add 0.6 roughly to our annual budget increase.
Doesn't sound that much.
Huh?
0.6 doesn't sound that much.
No, but we already probably want about we probably already want 5% for all the other shit that's gone up
We're
as
going
well.
to pay more for diesel and wages.
Yeah.
And
And I'm not saying it's a bad thing. You know, and look, and I think
These are the realities.
yeah, I'm just trying to get my head around the reality. So cash, we're not going to take cash out of where we can because we can probably have an adult discussion around long-term asset renewal and stuff like that. So we've got the cash to pay for it in one box or another, but to put the cash back into that reserve is still going to cost us 0.6 of a rate rise this year, which obviously then will, it's not every year, but we have to take the cop now to pay for it into the future. And I don't know if we said we're going to add 1% up just to give you a bigger car, I think the community would be very upset. But I do think the community has been, I think we've built a trust with the community that they do trust that we're doing shit that they want us to do. And I think there is a lot of people who want the pool.
The outdoor pool.
Yeah, the lap pool, because there's not many. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with Councillor Jessup, and I also think just whilst what Councillor Robertson said at the beginning, visitors and visitations is a different matter. How many people are actually, across the whole municipal area using this facility? But regardless of that, there's a whole number of people that are probably round about that short or, this size. They're all learning to swim there. Or the majority will. Port Huon is another location to get swimming lessons, but this is a valuable piece of infrastructure where we teach our kids to swim. So I think, of course it costs us money and it will always cost us money. It very likely, if we don't go for gold, with any other option, we still be making operational loss every single year because that's just the nature of the thing. But it's an essential facility for providing for physical, mental health, and for swim training, learn to swim training. So as much as it hurts, but it's something, I guess, as you said, Councillor Jessup, our community seems to have a big desire for, and a big need. So got to grind our teeth and suck it up, I suppose.
Yes, Councillor Thorpe.
I just have a comment. kind of where Councillor Robinson was on some of the terminology and some of the engagement I've had. I've had a lot of phone calls about this report this week, a lot, which has been strange. I don't know where the rumour has come from, but lots of people think the pool's closing. And I don't, from a political point of view, I don't like this bronze package because it gives the impression that we're still devaluing the pool from a perspective. But after reflecting and having conversations with people, I actually think we need to speak about it differently from a comms point of view and include that. Because if our community want this asset to continue to grow and be its place, the challenge needs to be you need to show up and use it. And not show up and use it once, bring your friends and be part of that because, so just wanted to make that comment that when we do go out with the comms, this is the community to show up as well. And that's what I've been saying to people. If you want these things, it's all good and well to give me a call when it comes up on the agenda, but it'll come back up on the agenda in 5 years' time and we probably won't be here. So you need to continue to show up and use these facilities, otherwise it probably won't be there.
This is the very definition of use it or lose it.
Yeah, that's it. We've had
If-
that discussion with.
And I don't think we should be afraid in actually just saying that. Not going out and say, yay, we've got $2 million for Huonville Pool. It's like, all right, we've made this really difficult decision to make it less difficult next time or to make sure that this decision meant something to the community. You need to show up and be part of that as well. Carry that decision on your shoulders as a community rather than just around this table.
So, just on that, we're not recording yet with our ticketing system. So we've brought the ticketing system in at Port Huon, haven't we? But we haven't brought it in here. And haven't we noticed a growth in Port Huon since we did the upgrades?
Yeah, so we had that by I'll let Frank
So
talk
we
about
know that the community will support using good infrastructure, I suppose.
Yep.
Yes, when it's good.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not good at the moment. I think that's the other point to say. It's not as bad as Port Huon was, but it's not good.
No, and I mean, I'm not sure what rumours about shutting it, but it is in. Yeah, if we don't do something about it, we won't be able to open it. That's the reality. Like, let's be on record. You cannot not maintain these things. It has been run on an oily rag for years and years and years. And I mean, it's the exact same thing that the Glenorchy pools experienced, and that got to a really poor state of degradation.
Yeah.
So we must do something, or it will shut. Not because we want to shut it, but because we can't open it.
And it's not even that we want to shut it; we just can't open it.
Yeah, it won't work.
Port Huon has definitely shown that better facilities attract more people, and that's been really, really pleasing. It still runs at a loss, but there's a lot more people using it.
But we're also disrupting it by doing the toilets and stuff at the moment. So when they're fully done, we would anticipate an even
see another tick.
bigger.
Yep. This one will be interesting because it's less attractive. You know, down there the amenity has really grown. You know, it's your eyes don't sting. It's warmer in the passageways, whereas this is the essential of just relining it. That doesn't make your swim experience really any better. It will certainly help people with mobility issues to get into the pool, so that will be fantastic. But I don't expect it's going to see the same kind of significant appreciation of it's a better experience. That's where. And we have looked at the other councils who are looking at pools as well. And all of them, the advice is always that the way you make a pool, try to get towards a more sustainable, financially sustainable level, is grow it, is get those hydrotherapy, the cafe, the gold, I don't know what nomenclature we're using at this point, but the nice one, that is meant to maximise the revenue. Yes, it's more costly. Yes, depreciation would be excruciating on that, but the revenue is significant to offset all those things.
But it's 5 million in total, so that's not in addition to the 3.5 million. So it's only, to get to silver is only 1.5 million more. And if, that's how I read this table. And if that's something we want to do, we might just have to say we have to plan for it for the next 3 years to do it.
And that's what the recommendation says is next year we do the actual cost benefit, we get the designs for that, we really firm that up and make that decision. But importantly, doing the recommendation now to go with the bronze option does not preclude us going further with. There's no lost there in going down to that silver or gold path. This is about doing what we must do to keep the thing operating.
Open.
Sorry, yeah.
When we talk about the design and the investigation business case for the silver and gold, that's a budget bid to the 26, 27, actually 27, 28.
27-28.
27, 28, which is we're going to put the budget into the next year's budget process. So then commission that year after. So the next year's focus is to have the Bronze Plus plan designed and implemented. Then the resource focus, then we shift our focus on the next stage is whether we pursue silver or gold or have the design ready on the shelf when the election comes, have the make the shovel ready. But also with confidence that the cost and design is something we can build with the money we're asking.
Yes, Amy.
Thanks for that. I do agree too with Councillor Thorpe's comments on the community valuing the pool, and I think sometimes there could be better ways that we manage the asset. And the thing that always occurs to me is that when we have a 30-degree day in Huonville, what if we had a policy that on those days we kept the pool open till 8 p.m? I suspect that an adaptive, it's hot, get wet policy would generate the revenue during that time frame to pay for a couple of extra hours of staff overtime. And it would actually bring people in to practice using our community facility to cool down and be a community and have fun and stay fit at the best times to use that pool.
You know what? And there, to me, that just brings back to this fact that we need to empower people to come up with what they would like. It's empowering the people to come and say, as as a group of people, we'd like to really do a community-based group that tries to make the pool better. Nothing to do with council. They're just a community group that are really keen on doing something and coming up with these great ideas without expecting council to always be the one that does these things.
I will say that the team are really trying to be flexible. They've tried different times and whatever else this year. There's obvious to have, it's a hot day, we'll flex, has some, I don't have to point out the obvious HR issues and whatever else to get people to do that. But yeah, I think this year the whole team really have been trying to try different options, opening hours, be as flexible as we can, and we'll continue to do that. We've talked about having food carts there and, Friday evening type things to encourage it. So that was just a stretch with all the other stuff that we've been focused on this year. It's the same team that's had stewardship for the community halls, was the same team that opened the pool, whatever. So we've had to prioritise, but I think next summer, that's the kind of thing that we'd love to be doing, which also lets us test. Is there an appetite? If there's food offerings and that kind of stuff there that we can do lightweight through food vans, if people do show up and celebrate and enjoy that kind of thing, then we go, it'll give us more confidence to go into the silver and the gold and go, yep, we actually will get the revenue that we need to make this thing better.
Yeah, longer term, we've also last meeting approved a potential 600, 700, 800 dwelling property development behind Huonville, which will generate 2,500 family, mums, dads and kids and stuff. So it's just ongoing.
It's part of a growing community. People need facilities.
That's right. And the Huonville yep. So, yes.
Through you, Mayor, if I may, I really like the look of the big job, but I don't think we really will be having that anytime soon. But I also question how many pools do we need? We might have issues getting someone to hire that hydrotherapy pool. Can we not do hydrotherapy at Port Ewan?
No.
Why?
It's a higher temperature, and to bring the entire pool to that temperature.
Like 22.
Yeah.
Yeah, thought so. Okay, so that's a. Yeah, but these are lovely drawings, by the way, and I can see myself sitting outside, looking like Princess Muck doing nothing on my day off, having coffee with the fans, you know. I can see it, but it isn't going to happen, let me just say. Yes, that's right. Like, hello, my lovely people. Sorry, just got wrapped in my, you know. Where's the kid incentive though? There's nothing for the little kids. Could we have softball area? Could we have the little sprinklers? I keep sort
There will
of.
be a new, because you lose there was talk of that in,
Wasn't there a new pedal pool or something?
yes, yes, yeah.
Maybe that toddler pool.
Yeah, silver and gold, but that's just pretty much what they already have, isn't it? But just
No,
a,
they'll lose, where the
That's
little
where
pool is
exactly-
now will be new.
yeah.
It'll be a
Do
new.
you know what I mean though? Like the animals that tip.
That's what would happen when you did something new, because that's what is new. That's what you'll see at Oatlands and all those places have got those. When they build new, that's what
So
happens.
we'll be having those for the
Well,
kids.
that would be,
That's part of the investigation.
that's right.
That would be the intent.
Yeah.
Because we do have, you know, the young family thing coming along.
Yeah.
And that has been the bit that people say, oh, it'd be good if there was something for the little kids. It'd be good if there was something for the little kids. So that would please me greatly if we had something for the little kids.
There would be, because they're pools that when you go into them, there's hardly any water,
Yeah, shall I?
and then it goes in. So that's just a new way. Yeah,
I'll be up there supporting. I'll just drink the coffee and watch.
yeah, good.
Yeah.
Did you have something, councillor? No? Yes, Dad?
Like I said, I fully support upgrading the facilities that's there, but I still haven't had a question answered on how this will affect, if we go to another 2 million into the bucket, how that affects other sporting facilities around the Huon. We've just spent 2 million on change rooms over the last 3 or 4 years, and that's been at Huonville, Franklin and Port Huon. We've spent $2 million at the Port Huon pool, which I fully support as well. But Cygnet has received no funding for change rooms at all. So I'm just asking, where does other projects stand if...
We've talked about this before in terms of those other projects have been renewal projects of those existing buildings, and Cygnet has not yet had that renewal program applied to it. So it hasn't been additional funding allocated to these buildings, some kind of special.
Well, they're older buildings than the ones that have been renewed. So I'm not... I just don't... Yeah, I think our community's been missing out. I don't like to be parochial, I never have been, but I think it's come to a stage where I have to ask these questions.
No, that's fine, Dave.
That's completely fair, but
Yeah.
that's the answer to it, is that it's those other buildings are being renewed as part of the capital renewal program to bring those buildings up to spec. I think we've provided the answer before on where the Cygnet, the age and renewal value for the Cygnet football ground and cricket grounds are at. The answer to this one is it doesn't have a correlation directly that we make this investment on this pool and it will have a bearing on what happens to other sporting clubs. It's as Councillor Jessup pointed out, it's what's the % rate rise to fund this as a new thing. We're not currently sitting here going, we're going to take that cost away from others, from our investments into other sporting facilities. That is an option that councillors would have open to them, but that's not what we're saying. We're saying make an additional commitment to sporting.
One thing through you, Mayor. When you look at the overall capital investment, Cygnet gonna have that 5 million safety improvement program, which no other suburbs getting that.
Yeah.
What was that? Sorry, I missed that, Frank.
That's the 5 million Cygnet safety improvement program that's well delivered from this. Actually, we already commenced.
5 million improvement.
Yeah, down Mary Street, all the safety improvements there.
Well, that's not sporting though, is it?
Yeah, it's not sporting, but it's getting that because it needs it, and other townships aren't. What I'm saying is there's no bias towards any particular town. We've got a really distributed base of townships with buildings of all sorts of different ages, qualities, etc.
Okay. Well, my point reply to that is the problem with our facilities is that our community's got off their arse and raised the money and done it themselves, as we do with medical and childcare. And I just feel that we're paying our share of rates and we're not getting a return on that. So that's where I'm going. So anyway, like I said, yep.
You made your point, that's,
Yep,
yep,
that's it.
that's good.
Okay.
Thanks,
Thank
Dave.
you.
All right. Yeah, we can talk about that at another time, and maybe we can even discuss that a little bit more, but like we already have, but we can discuss it at another budgeting, budget time.
And absolutely through, as we further develop the asset management strategy, that is the key piece that we need to look at.
Thank you. Thanks, Dave.
And we've still got a pool that needs to be fixed, it's already there. So that's, I don't really like this pool situation, I'm a bit like, it's a bit stressful. I do. A little mini meltdown.
So councillor Robinson, what do you want to do about your names?
I will live with what is printed.
Thank you.
But I do support making the splash. And I was just going to comment, these are really big discussions, and we've touched on a couple of other concepts with the secondary residences that really pull between the practicalities of helping people, giving people accommodation and housing, but issues such as amenity or how you design a functional community where people want to live and whether they've got enough transport to their homes, things like that.
As the next agenda item is community livability.
And the bottom line of paying for it. Because it actually struck me as we spoke, if we decided not to do with this splash with the pool, we'd actually need to incorporate, and our due diligence would be to incorporate the knowledge we now have about the condition of the asset, its replacement cost, and we're going to have to up our depreciation in our budget bottom line anyway, even if we put off any repairs or whatever, because it's recognising we want to keep an asset there and it's going to cost us more than we thought it would, or it's actually facing the stark reality, we've got an extra 1.5 million in our potential asset funding bucket because we've chosen not to spend it on the Huonville pool that will close. So, yeah, really tough stuff, but we have to take that into account anyway. And I was just going to close by saying what we're moving is to put this into the budget proposal. So we do get a second chance of looking at this in June when we look at the budget for next year and say, eek, that's too much of a rate rise. We have to be really ruthless and cull stuff. So we do get maybe a second bite of the decision, but I think it's valuable to reflect our intention at this point in time. It's an iterative process.
On that note, I will say, all those in favour of the recommendation, please raise your hand. That is Councillor Roszak, Doyle, Thorpe, Armstrong, Jessup and Robinson, and no is you don't want to vote at all? You abstain, or that's a no vote anyway?
Yeah, that's right. I'll abstain.
Yeah.
I don't want to stop the pool from being upgraded, but I'm not sure how far I want to go.
All right, no, that's fine.
Okay, thank you.
So you've got that recorded then, thank you. Okay, thanks a lot. Report number 18.012/26, adoption of the Community Livability Fund. I refer the councillors to the recommendation of this report. Do I have a councillor to move the motion? Councillor Roszak, and seconded, Councillor Thorpe. Councillor Roszak, do you have any opening on this?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I think by now it's not a big secret that I'm a big fan of the livability framework and everything that comes with it. I think it's a great tool to, encourage our communities to take their fate into their own hands if they're willing to do so. And the Community Livability Fund will hopefully be an instrument to fund those ideas that will be presented by our community. I think, it's a great idea to pull it all together, consolidate the 4 or 5 different grant streams that we currently have into a single one, especially as the livability framework is now our underlying strategic document for that. And if I may, I would only make one comment on the guidelines, which I kind of flagged already prior to this meeting, as it's a new framework, a new application kind of process. I was wondering if we could allow for an application period that's 2 weeks longer, just to allow, people to get used to the framework, understand the livability framework and how it works, where they can actually, make the biggest difference, in which way. So, other than that, a great idea. And reading through the documents, it seems to streamline the process and all of that. But if we could consider an extension of the application time, I think I'd appreciate that.
Well, I'll pass that through. Yeah.
Through you, ma'am. As far as operationally possible, I appreciate the comments, and I think that we'll do our best to extend it. The officer that will be driving the program or is coordinating the program has been away, so I'll engage with her when she returns to work.
Thank you.
Yes, Councillor Thorpe.
Everything that Councillor Mosek said, I think it's great. I did pick up on 2 things that I wanted to raise. The first thing was about equitable access to be able to apply for this grant in terms of the timeframes. We just have one timeframe for in the guidelines for the entire budget, and I think that's not recognising that we do have seasons in the way our community and livability works as well. There might be walking groups or summer sports that are operating over the summer that aren't going to be applying for these funds during the winter because it's their down period and they're probably not engaging with that. So I'm wondering if it's actually more accessible if we do have more than one period, to allow for the recognition that the groups, the individuals and the businesses that would really have great projects probably are seasonal as well in the way that they operate and might miss out on these opportunities because it's just in one period of the year. And the second one was just out of transparency and giving guide to people. I think we should include our total budget for this fund in the guideline under the available funding, so it doesn't seem like it's an endless amount of grant money. Those are just my 2 points.
What do you...
To the second point, I can say, yes, that's a great idea. We'll put the budget in there so people understand that there's a limitation. To the first point, there's a bit of an administrative consideration in that, in how we would administer that. If we received enough applications to have a full complement of spend through the one round, then obviously we wouldn't have enough funding for the second round. But I do appreciate your position. I think for this financial year, we're in a position where we don't have that option because of the timeframes and the financial year ending soon. But we could potentially do it for this year and then look at for the next financial year how we could incorporate it, because I see your point and I think it is valid. And maybe we can bring it back to council with suggested amendments as a council report in the next financial year.
Do I have any other comments on this?
Sorry, is that you?
No, I said you.
Oh, sorry, thank you. Through me. Just with Councillor Thorpe's observation, could, it would be like a once a year thing, so would it be like a community awards, so people probably would know that was the time they had to apply.
Probably the next year, but I think what he's thinking is...
Yes, but even if they applied for a grant, they don't have to use it straight away, do they? They could then, if they were a summer thing and it was winter and they got a grant, they could then put it towards use in the summer, couldn't they? There's not a time frame for them to use.
Quicker within a year.
I think it's more along the fact of them not being active. I think that's what Councillor Thorpe meant. Yeah. and they might not be, their committee might gone into recess because it's not that time, they're not doing it that time of the year. I think that's what, am
So
I
the
wrong?
total funds are 37,300, is that correct?
Yeah.
So if we broke that up over 2 years, that's a lot of work for the staff, over two rounds.
Yeah, there's more administration.
Yeah, because it's not a huge grant package. But I mean, I just thought maybe we could just encourage them to think ahead and plan ahead. It's a job for you, encourage them to plan ahead.
Yes, Councillor Robinson.
I totally recognise the issue. I think I'm comfortable with the once a year option. And in my mind, it is that if we didn't get enough applications and there was funds left over, then you might run a second round another 6 months later. So that would remain a possibility. But I'm also kind of hopeful that we get so many applications that we actually, so in conjunction with our livability framework and a more informed and empowered community, we actually have so many applications that we spend the money really easily and get to our 6 month budget review and have a really good case to say, can we find another $20,000 for more good ideas, and we'll put the leftover applications from that first round in there, and maybe we need more or something. So I think there's more than one way to solve the problem. I do see the strength of doing it just once a year, and I think it's potentially hard for the community to access as we start some changes with the process. So lots of communication to encourage all our community groups to be aware and put in, but I do think it gets easier further down the track.
Like, I'm happy with it as is, but I think just to recognise when applications do come through, do that measurement. What is the percentage of projects that are only happening in the winter period, and what's the opportunity that we've just missed
For
from summer?
fairness.
And that's the most livable time of the year, and our grants are complete. We can't contribute to food at the Yonville Pool if a community group decides that that's a project they want to take on, because the funds have been expended and now the summer is empty in terms of our community support from this grant perspective. So I think it's just something to review as a first time round, but I would suggest that's exactly what will happen.
What we can do is look at it in the going from the second year on. We'll have that, once this is adopted, we'll have that discretion to start the advertising, accepting proposals any time in that financial year. So if we do see that there's a high demand in the summer, there's nothing stopping us in middle of spring starting that process and saying, hey, we're ramping up now, now's the time.
Any others?
And Councillor Lucas is really active in that space, so you can drum up a bit of
Always. I'm a drummer, by the way.
Oh, there you go. PSP.
Never doubted it. I've never doubted it.
You know everything about everything, so you can get that going.
All right, so if that's the case, would you like to close, Councillor Rezak, or you're happy with all the comment? Yep.
I appreciate Deputy Mayor Thorpe's angle on it. I think it makes sense. I mean, if you look at it, we had 5 grant programs previously, with each had their own administrative kind of bundle with it. If it means in the end we got 2 instead of 5, well, it's still efficiency improvement, isn't it? So, and if that kind of gets the money out in a broader scale to more people, why not? Happy with that. So for the moment, absolutely happy with the motion as it stands, and yeah, future investigations into splitting it are very welcome. So thank you.
Well done. All right, well, I'll put that motion. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That's all, councillors. The motion is carried. (19.009/26). We're about to move into closed council, so I'd like to thank those watching at home, because we have no one left in the gallery. The recommendation is that the meeting now be closed to the public at
8:33.
pursuant to Regulation 17 of the Local Government Meeting Procedures Regulations 2025 to discuss the following matters. Do I have a councillor to move a motion to go into closed? Councillor Thorpe. Do I have a seconder? Councillor O'Neill. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That's all, councillors, and the motion is carried. I advise that in accordance with Huon Valley Council's audio recording of council meetings policy, recording of the open session of the meeting ceases at
8:34.